Hey guys, DemonFire93 here, and today I'll be bringing you my theory for everything going on in the game Life is Strange. Life is Strange is the 5-part episodic game that I've been playing recently, and so many other people have been playing recently. Then we got this big community of people trying to figure out what's gonna happen in episode 5. And so, it kind of goes without saying that, spoiler alert, we're gonna be spoiling some stuff from the first 4 episodes, so if you haven't played it and you intend to, I suggest you stop watching and go watch the series. It's fantastic. But I've been doing a lot of research on many different things, and in my research I've come across a bunch of other really good theories that I just had to poke holes in. I mean, I like what other people are doing, really. But we're trying to figure out what's going on in this game, and to do that we kind of have to disprove some other people's theories. So before I start on my theory, I will actually be disproving a couple theories that I've heard, and in doing so, I'll be kind of doing what the game itself does, which, it gives you a little bit of information here and there until you finally can put the pieces of the puzzle together in one final episode that we're waiting on still. So the first theory that I heard numerous times, and one that I actually believed for quite a while until I looked at it a little closer, is that Mr. Jefferson is actually Sean Prescott. Now, this theory is common because of the fact that the dark room is in the barn that the Prescotts own, and that Mr. Jefferson is the one who is drugging the girls and bringing them to said barn. So it kind of goes without saying that he has something to do with the Prescotts. But the first bit of evidence that we get that disproves it is the photo we see in episode 4 of Nathan with his father. Yes, Nathan is young in this picture, and obviously 10 years have passed, so it's possible that Sean Prescott could have changed his look to be Mr. Jefferson years later, but Mr. Jefferson was not always in Arcadia Bay. He's been a photographer all over. He just recently came to Arcadia Bay, so how would it be that Sean Prescott went missing months ago, went out of town months ago, or years ago, depending on how long, I don't remember how long Mr. Jefferson's been around, but went missing and Mr. Jefferson came in and then he's back, and it just would not work. Number 2, now that part of the theory can still hold up with what I've given you so far, that the theory is still sound, until we go to the Vortex Club party, and we talk to our friend Luke. Because Luke, if you remember, the only other time we talk to him is in episode 1, and he describes his disdain for Nathan Prescott, and the Prescotts in general, really, and everyone in the Vortex Club. So when you see him at the Vortex Club party, and you ask him about Sean Prescott, he'll tell you that he met Sean Prescott at a football game once. And since he goes to Blackwell, wouldn't you think that he knows Mr. Jefferson and would say, "Hey, Mr. Jefferson, why are you Mr. Prescott? That doesn't make any sense." And he's not loyal to the Prescott, so it's not like it's Victoria, on the other hand, who knows Sean Prescott and Mr. Jefferson and cares about both of them and would therefore, maybe cover it up for them. That's not the way that Luke is. Now, the last little snippet that people will try and say is the phone call that Mr. Jefferson gets. Now, originally I thought that the phone call was actually from Rachel, until we kind of, found her dead in episode 4. Then it kind of went, yeah. So then the question went, who is Jefferson talking to? Well, he doesn't seem to be wanting to talk to them that way and everything. I don't know, it's just so difficult to tell. It's gotta be Nathan. Everyone says it's gotta be Nathan. Until you look in the classroom and you see Nathan sitting on your desk. And those two scenes are not exclusive, set time apart from each other. You can still exit Jefferson's classroom after you've gone in. Therefore, you can see that Nathan's in the room, walk back outside, Jefferson's still on the phone, and Nathan's not talking to him on the phone. So that's not Nathan. And also, why would Nathan be calling Jefferson from inside the classroom that he's sitting in when Jefferson's outside? They're 10 feet from each other. Have we gotten to that sort of technology? Have we gotten to that level of technology where we can't talk to each other 10 feet from each other? We have to call each other on the phone? I know we text each other on the phone all the time 10 feet from each other, but still. So we know that Mr. Jefferson is not Sean Prescott. Then why is he working with the Prescotts? We can clearly tell he's working with them and working for them. But who is that person on the phone? Well, if we look at the letters that we've gotten throughout the game, and we've noticed from Sean Prescott to Nathan, Sean Prescott always seems to sign these letters until we find the one in the darkroom that doesn't have his signature on it. And originally, I thought what most people have thought with this one is that it's Sean Prescott saying this to Nathan: stop calling me on my phone, yada yada yada. So I don't want you screaming my name in public. But that doesn't make sense. If it was Sean that made that, you'd sit there and go, okay, well, he'd be saying dad, dad, and people know Nathan's Prescott's dad, Sean Prescott. What is that a big deal? That letter has to be from Mr. Jefferson. That's true. People have come to that conclusion, and that's why they think that Sean Prescott is Mr. Jefferson, and vice versa, whatever. But look closely at the letter. He talks about how his stepfather taught him how to do these things, and that he is going to lead Nathan into this. Go back to the barn, and we see that the Prescotts have been in charge of Arcadia Bay for centuries. So clearly, this person who is sending this message to Nathan, who we think is Mr. Jefferson, is related in some way, which means Mr. Jefferson is not Sean Prescott, but Sean Prescott's stepbrother, Nathan's uncle, which explains why he is working with the Prescotts and who he is talking to in that phone conversation. You wouldn't talk to an employer that way, so that's why people ruled out Sean Prescott from that sense, but you could easily talk to a stepbrother that way. The second theory that I am disproving is that Rachel is alive and Nathan is the one that's buried in the junkyard. Now, there are two different versions of this theory, only one of which I can actually disprove. The first one is that people thought that initially, the moment that you're digging up the body, it's Nathan, it's not Rachel. Well, look at the grave itself before we even start touching it, the gravesite. It's covered in grass. That takes a long time to grow, which means that that ground has been there undisturbed for at least days, weeks, months, and we've seen Nathan plenty of times since then. We saw him hours ago before we went to the barn and went and found the body. That being said, that's another part of why it can't be Nathan, because Max explains about the stench that she smells as they're digging it up. Yet again, dead bodies don't stink until hours or days after they have died. Since we saw Nathan earlier on that day, it is not possible that that was Nathan. It is possible, plausible, I guess, that it could be Nathan the second time when Mr. Jefferson drugs us and kills Chloe, but what would that solve? If Mr. Jefferson isn't actually working with the Prescotts, and he just killed a Prescott and buried him there, wouldn't the Prescotts be inclined to find their missing son? And wouldn't the police be a little bit more diligent for a Prescott than they would have been for a random girl named Rachel Amber in finding him? So wouldn't killing a Prescott cause a lot more trouble than killing Rachel Amber? So I highly doubt that it's Nathan. Another reason why it can't be is that we know, or at least I strongly believe that Rachel is dead, and that Rachel is our spirit animal. Rachel is the spirit doe. Think back to the first time that we see the spirit doe. No. Not in-game, you guys. We have to think back to the first time in the timeline, because if we take a look at that time, that is supposed to actually be on Friday, episode 5. If we look at the timeline, the first time that we actually see the spirit doe is in the junkyard, directly over where Rachel is buried, in episode 2. At that time, we don't understand what any reason for that. We don't understand what the purpose of that is. We just see there's a spirit doe. I can take a picture of it to get an achievement, or a trophy, or whatever. But we don't see any real purpose to it. Come episode 4, we do. That is the giveaway there, is that it's Rachel. And then when we're digging her up and Mountains is playing, which, God, I love that song, by the way. As that's playing, the screen pans out and we see the spirit doe again, looking down in sadness and then disappearing because we solved the mystery of her murder. The third theory that I want to cover and disprove is that Mr. Jefferson and Nathan are actually good, and that they're trying to prevent the tornado. Now, first off, this has a lot of speculation in that we have to speculate that Max is causing the tornado. Max using her powers is what causes the tornado at the end of the week. We're not entirely sure on that. Nobody can definitively say that's what's causing the tornado or not at this moment. So this theory says that Mr. Jefferson and the Prescotts know about the tornado and know that a girl from Blackwell is causing it. And so they are kidnapping girls and drugging them to try and find the girl who has the time travel powers and kill her so that the tornado doesn't occur. If that were the case, wouldn't it have been better for Jefferson just to shoot both Chloe and Max right then and there to, make sure that they're dead and get rid of the time traveler? And how in the world do they know about the tornado anyways? Really, why would Rachel have been kidnapped? Were they aware of the tornado 6 months in advance? And 6 months ago they said, hey, a tornado is going to be coming in 6 months and it's going to be caused by this girl. And so they started kidnapping all the girls. Wouldn't it make more sense if that were true, that Max is causing it and that Jefferson and the Prescotts are trying to stop it? That, once Max came back to Arcadia Bay, that's when these kidnappings started happening and these disappearances? I think that would make a little bit more sense. Besides, every single person that you talk to says that the Prescotts are evil. The Prescotts represent death. Why is that? Well, for that, we have to go into my theory. And that is that the Prescotts are actually behind the tornado. I mean, look at the Vortex Club. Doesn't the actual club logo look a little bit like a tornado? And doesn't it seem a little weird that the end of the world party is happening the week that the tornado is coming? And why is it that the Prescotts have a bomb shelter that they've so eloquently named Stormbreaker? They clearly know about the tornado coming. We know that partly from the deleted audio from the trailer that nobody got to see happen in the game, because maybe the writers changed how it worked. Or how do the Prescotts know about the tornado unless they're causing it? Now, I know this is getting a little bit into science fiction here, or so you might think, because this game is science fiction, but the way that they use the time travel powers makes it feel so fluid that it's not science-y at all. You think time travel, you think a time machine of some sort, and that's science fiction. You don't think some superpower and everything. So, this isn't actually science fiction, what I'm saying. I found that there's a man who's actually built a tornado machine that he is trying to use to harness the energy of tornadoes to create our next renewable resource, somehow turning tornadoes into usable energy. What if the Prescotts got a hold of that technology and let it loose on Arcadia Bay? But why would they do that? Well, Sean Prescott wants to own all of Arcadia Bay, and he can't do that. But he does have Pan Estates that he's been building. So, what if he plays the hero and warns everyone about the tornado, and he has these storm shelters all over Arcadia Bay, gets everyone into them, and then the tornado hits, destroying all of Arcadia Bay, except for Pan Estates because they're a little bit further from the shore, and then rents the Pan Estates to anyone who wants to live in Arcadia Bay. He would own all of Arcadia Bay at that point and get what he wanted, his evil plan. My theory has to revolve around 3 specific spots. We have the past, the present, and the future. 3 specific things that are in every single time travel. The past has influence on the present, which has influence on the future, and any one of those is interchangeable. But we get our powers, and there are multiple different things in each time period that we can work with. In the past, we have Rachel's disappearance and William's death. The present, we have Chloe's death via Nathan and the gun in the bathroom. And the future, we have the tornado. We already tried to save William, and we saw how that worked out for us. So we weren't given our powers to stop William's death. Honestly, I have to say that we weren't given our powers to stop Chloe's death, because in every single episode, she basically dies. Episode 1, she gets shot. Episode 2, she gets hit by a train. Episode 3, well, she goes into the whole wheelchair situation, but if you continue that into episode 4, yeah, she kind of dies there too, because, she wants you to kill her because her life is miserable from everything in the wheelchair. And by the way, I think Nathan was the one who did that because...
Okay, to talk about the accident? We never actually have, huh? There's not much to say. Some prick in an SUV cut me off and I flew into a ditch.
Chloe gives us that, and then Max, when we're looking through all of the different information, we see that Nathan drives an SUV, so you can kind of connect the dots there and speculate that Nathan, in the alternate timeline, crashed into Chloe, putting her into a wheelchair. So that leaves 2 separate events that we can change with our powers. Rachel's disappearance and death, and the tornado. Well, we've already solved Rachel's disappearance and death with what we've done. So all that's left is to stop the tornado. Now that part of the episode 5, I don't have worked out. I don't know how she's going to do that. What I do have is what happens at the beginning. Obviously, Max is in the dark room. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I kind of see us being tied up kind of how, Agrippa from Amnesia, The Dark Descent was. Yeah, that's kind of the way that I see Max tied up. So she can't really access any of her photos that she's collected and use them to go back to a certain moment in time like she could in episode 3. No, she has to have someone come and save her. And as much as I'd like for it to happen kind of like how The Walking Dead Telltale Games Season 1 Episode 4 went, where Clementine goes missing and Lee decides to go find her and asks everybody who's still alive, will you join me? And then depending on your decisions throughout the game on how you treated each character, they'll say yes or no. I don't think that's going to be the case. I don't think it's going to go, well, did you side with David or Chloe? Well, then David's going to help you, or David's not going to help you. Did you decide to go with Warren to the movies? Well, then he'll come and help you. Did you warn Victoria? Well, then she'll come and help you. I don't think that's how it's gonna work. What I think is our mystery character. If you'll remember, when we went through the investigation to find out where Nathan is taking these girls, we found from David's investigation that he was tailing 4 separate vehicles. Now, if we look at those 4 vehicles, we can find out who they are and where they went. From this, we can actually accurately accurately create a map of Arcadia Bay. Now, there are 4 separate vehicles, each with 4 separate license plates. Twin Peaks is easily figured out as Chloe's car, or Chloe's truck. Top of the lake is Mr. Jefferson's car. 6 feet under is Nathan's SUV. But the 4th vehicle, Twilight Zone, we don't know whose that is. But throughout David's investigation, he tracked all 4 vehicles, and because of Chloe, we can find where these locations are. By giving Chloe Nathan's coordinates, she'll punch them all in, and we get the exact coordinates of where certain locations in Arcadia Bay are. So if you look at the map, you'll see that we have all of these locations mapped out, including the barn, but there are a few locations that only specific characters go to. The J is Mr. Jefferson's house, because every night he would end his night going home, except for the night of Kate's disappearance. That night, Jefferson's car was left at the gas station, the same time that Nathan was leaving the party with Kate. So we know that Mr. Jefferson hitched a ride with Nathan and Kate back to the barn at that point, and Jefferson's car was left at the gas station overnight. So we have multiple different locations across the map that we know of thanks to Chloe. So the specific locations that each specific character goes, we can assume are their houses. So if we look at Twilight Zone, we see that they go to the school every day, and then go to a location, most likely their house, every night, which means that they have to be one of the characters that we know, because they are either a student or a faculty member. But they have to be a faculty member because we know that anybody who's a student spends their nights in the dorms. So our mystery savior has to be one of the faculty members. And the only faculty members we know are Mr. Jefferson, Ms. Grant, Principal Wells, and Samuel. As you can see by the question mark, our mystery Twilight Zone's house is very close to the junkyard. So whoever they are, they would likely hear the gunshot from Mr. Jefferson and come and investigate. They may even get there in time to be able to track Mr. Jefferson to the barn. But that doesn't matter, because the person who it is Samuel. Samuel, our lovable janitor, the red herring that people thought was really creepy and was probably the killer. It's a cliche, but he's going to be the savior. The creepy guy is the guy that's always looking out for you. He's the one that informed us of our spirit animal and seems to know so much about everything going on without actually talking to people. He learns it from his squirrels, his spirit animal. And isn't it kind of weird how in every single episode we have a photo op for a squirrel, and in multiple scenes we get help from squirrels? It may not seem like that at times, but if you look closely at episode 4, you'll see that there's a squirrel that goes into the barn entrance that we use before we go in. It leads us to the entrance. It could do the exact same thing for Samuel. The squirrels could tell Samuel to go to the barn after he hears the gunshot, and he could end up at the barn. And would Mr. Jefferson really close that trap door behind him, or would he probably leave it open? He's not expecting anybody to come down after him. So we have Samuel, who, very fits Twilight Zone. Samuel comes to our aid and rescues us, but we have a choice at that point. We have a number of pictures that we still have intact with us. If you'll remember, at the end of episode 4, before we go into the Vortex Club, Warren asks for a photo. We more than likely still have that photo with us, and therefore we could go back to just the right time and tell everyone that Mr. Jefferson is the culprit. There's also the butterfly photo that's probably still on Chloe's body, so we could return to Chloe and get the butterfly photo and jump back in time to that time and not do anything, allowing Nathan to kill Chloe, because the thing is, Max has already been through this. You see, the very first time you use your time travel power, you don't stay where you are. That was the thing that they told us at the beginning of the game, was when you use your time travel power, you're able to basically teleport, because you use your rewind and then you'll stay in the same location, but everything else will revert back. So why is it that the first time that Max uses her powers, she goes back to Mr. Jefferson's classroom just like everyone else? Wouldn't she have stayed in the girls' room? Well, what if Max from the future used her photo power to look into a photo and go back, take over past Max's body to try and stop Nathan from shooting Chloe, because this was her first time doing this, and use the rewind, and then while the rewind is going on, left past Max's body to allow her to be moved with the time flow back to the classroom, and then she learns all of these things, only to find that we can't save Chloe. The universe just wants Chloe dead. So I find that that is our decision at the end of episode 5, is do we go back and tell everyone of Jefferson and Nathan and the Prescott's tornado plan at the beginning of the week, so we have a whole week to stop it, but lose Chloe? Or do we save Chloe at the expense of the entire town? But that's just my theory on the whole thing, because I personally don't believe that they're going to make you kill Max, because that would be too much like the Butterfly Effect's bad ending. Because, yeah, if you've seen the Butterfly Effect, you likely know what I'm talking about, but you may not know there's a second ending, a good ending on the DVD. That it was the ending that I saw originally and was like, wow, this was really good. He actually gets to live. It's the bad ending where he goes back to before he was born and kills himself. I don't think that they would make Max die like that. But that is my whole theory for Life is Strange. Except for one last thing, episode 5's release date. As we were going on, we were told that they had a 6-week schedule. They were planning on every 6 weeks they were going to release the next episode. That worked well for 2 and 3. 4 kind of fell off the rails and took about 9 weeks. If episode 5 goes like 4 did, they'll take a while, but there's a specific date that is approaching that would be perfect for them to release it on. A date that gives them plenty of time to work on the finale. That time is October 11th, the exact day that episode 5 is supposed to take place. Now that would mean waiting an entire month still, almost an entire month before its release. But personally, I kind of like that. Having it released on the day that it's gonna have the tornado happen and everything. Ooh. So let me know in the comments what you guys think. You think I'm full of shit? You think that you have a theory that is better than mine? Have a bunch of holes to poke in my theory? Feel free to leave them in the comments below. I'd love to hear anybody's thoughts on these. These have been going over my head over and over again since I finished episode 4, and I cannot wait until episode 5 to play it on the day it comes out. But that'll do it for us today, guys. As always, hope you guys enjoyed. And I'm DemonFire93, and I'll see you guys next time.